Joe, I just watched this crazy video of you walking. I mean, every step looks like it's painful. Tell me about where you are now in your rehab.
Colombia and
Two to
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan and one to Colombia
Got
for
it.
counter narcotics. So yeah, three total.
And you trained at Fort Benning, right? Or that
For
was
my basic training, yes, and
Yeah.
airborne school was at Fort Benning, and then SF training or Special Forces Assessment and Selection is all at Fort Bragg, the Mecca, as I jokingly refer to it.
got it.
We're all special operations out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. That was in Colombia, actually, doing
Okay.
explosives training with the Colombian COPES, or they're like the equivalent of our FBI. It was the Colombian. That's what their federal police. We were training them.
Where is
That's
this?
me chilling. 2012 in Afghanistan.
Okay.
Chilling in a freaking hot as hell and chilling, taking a break, a little siesta in the side of like the great roads, and they have all kinds of. That's a really beautiful part of Afghanistan.
And then Joe, can you give us just a brief background what this bullet, how you encountered it, and where?
Far left is what I was hit with in my helmet. That's the PKM round. The middle one is the AK-47 round. So the PKM is a 7.62, meaning it's the same caliber or diameter as the AK round, just a longer cartridge, as you can see in that photograph. So much more oomph behind it because it's a belt-fed machine gun, so it can travel further on a clearing operation.
And
Or as I worded it, pick a fight.
yeah, as you were driving with you had how many? 12 people? How many people were in your group?
Well, my team was spread out, and we had not only Afghani local police. We always bring the Afghanis with us because that's what we're trying to pass stuff off to them and let them take over and get used to controlling and managing their security of their country. And we were actually uplifted or built up with an infantry unit that was attached to us from the regular army, and then there was my detachment and our uplift infantry unit from second ID, infantry unit, I believe it was, and then there was the ANA, or the Afghani National Army.
And then you were driving into this hot spot, and what did you experience?
Well, we were going into the village knowing that it was every time U.S. forces, or coalition forces as they're called, traveled through that area, they would get rounds pop off at them, like just that the Taliban were just, doing engagements, just trying to pick fights. And so we went in there to go ahead and engage them and take them out and draw them out. And sure enough, we did. But they were in a well fortified position within a grape hut, is what it's called. So it's basically how I describe it. It's like a thick mud, like foot thick mud wall if you think of a cheese grater, like that sitting on the ground. And they're like, so that's like an ideal fighting position to build up, and that, our bullets aren't going to go through those foot thick mud walls. So they're just hiding in there and popping off rounds and rockets at us.
But you're driving toward them, correct?
Yes, and we were stopped, and I was on top of the truck. Like all the SF or Special Forces guys would be on the most dangerous position, so we can direct the other guys and lead from the front as we're called to as leaders.
And then you heard,
well, yeah, rounds were popping off. My last memory, and I'm sure I've shared this with you, I was on top of the truck and I looked through the scope of my rifle because I had a SCAR, the Special Operations Command assault rifle, the new weapon that we had to replace the M4 carbine. And I was on top of the truck, and I just, from my medic's point of view, he's like, you slumped over and fell into the truck, and then he went to work on me. And they still, from what I'm told. For me, it was lights out after that, you know?
But your medic saved your life, correct?
Yes, he performed a battlefield tracheotomy, as it's called, to get an airway in.
And then when you emerged, they brought you back.
Well, no, I was taken. I mean, from his perspective, he said he had to sit. My D'Amato's words, my 18 Delta, my medic, his words were, Joe, I had to sit on you for like an hour, keeping me alive, because they wouldn't bring a helicopter in to evacuate me because the zone was too hot. If they won't bring a freaking helicopter in, because that's a big deal if one of those get knocked down, you know, and the Taliban would love to take out a helicopter because that they know how we do things. And anytime a helicopter goes down, then we swarm on the area, and they're like, oh, we can pick off tons of Americans and just cause mass chaos. And so, yeah, he had to sit on me for like an hour while they were trying to get things calmed down a bit or get control over the area. And then they evacuated me to Kandahar Airfield, where that picture I'm seeing in there at the Roll 3 hospital, the combat or forward combat hospital, cash as it's referred to, or a command team giving me the Purple Heart. So at that point in time, they were telling people, and my wife calling her and telling her, hey, not looking good, and you know, it'd be lucky if he gets to Germany, and we were able to keep him alive. But so that's why they gave me the Purple Heart there, to assume it would be posthumously awarded, meaning I was going to die. Wow. And that was also given the last rites. I don't have that picture, but the guys told me about it. They're like, yeah, when the priest came in to give you the last rites, which I went on Keith Nestor's program to tell that whole story. That's a process of being baptized into the Catholic Church that's only given when folks are in combat or on their deathbed.
Did actually make it to Germany, and then you made it to Walter Reed.
Walter Reed, yes.
How long did that take?
So I was in a coma, from what I'm told, for a month before I emerged. And, you know, I was at Walter Reed for some time, and that's pictured there with Obama visiting me there. Comatose, my son, my mom, our neighbor. A month, from what I'm told.
And then from this point, where did you go?
I went to Palo Alto VA rehab center, the polytrauma rehab centers, where I emerged from my coma. And that's where I began my memory of things. Like, I don't remember these pictures. I don't remember any of this. Just told the stories, you know.
And then you went from Palo Alto down to Casa Colina?
Casa Colina, yes.
In Southern California.
Well, I was at Casa Colina for several years in rehab, not making much progress. And that's when I was going to and from BTC, or Wave Neuro, seeking treatment through them. Their awesome program, which John Doolittle hooked me up with.
And then from that point, then John introduced David Towell and me to you.
In like 2017, 18, somewhere around there.
Then from 2018, when you started to do KAATSU to the current time, how have you been using KAATSU?
Well, like I've said many a times, you know, and we were kind of alluding to earlier when I was referring to my spasticity problem. We noticed that, you and I and David, right off the bat, like it reduced that dramatically, which is huge for somebody, because I battle that. And so spasticity, to quickly break that down. But anyhow, so yeah, the spasticity is a overreactive muscle contraction due to any neurological condition. There's numerous neurological conditions that cause it: strokes, MS, you know, there's quite a few various ones. But it definitely reduced that, which allowed me to stand up easier and walk easier. What causes a lot of my issues, and it's not as much, there's muscle weakness, but the combination of having spasticity on top of that is what impairs my ability to do things, ambulating and those kinds of things. And we saw the huge benefits for reducing that. And then sleep has been tremendously helped by use of KAATSU passive cycles at nighttime during my nighttime routine.
You do 2 sessions a day, correct?
Yes, the active in the morning, and twice in the morning, actually, I should say. I do it while walking with my caregiver, and then I do an arm cycle of training arms in the morning because I have my left arm that's still impaired.
And then the evening session?
The evening, I just passive while I'm laying in bed reading, doing my red light therapy, as my caregiver refers to it.
In the evening session, do you just do arms?
No, legs.
Okay.
And I chose to do that. And I know you and I talked about it, and I think David too. I chose to do that. Just my thinking was bigger muscle group.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it calmed that spastic tone down at nighttime too. And because even before my injury, this is kind of a little piece of neurology that interests me, that a puzzle that I haven't quite put together, if anybody doctor's been able to answer it for me. So my wife, when we were sleeping in the same bed together before my injury, she always jokingly self-diagnosed me with RLS, which is restless leg syndrome, because she said I was always moving my feet at night. And that still is the case. Like after my injury, it's just exacerbated. Like at my old place, when I was wearing these big metal they had these band on the side of my boots. Like I marked up my wall really bad, I guess, like just doing. Folks that, like, when I was in the hospital, they always said, yeah, Joe, it's like you're walking at nighttime when you're sleeping. And I'm like, man, that's weird. But yeah,
So-
the KAATSU tends to calm that down, I think. So that's why I chose to do legs at night, because I know think I came across something, that one of your guys's like articles that said something about arms being more close to the heart and that like affecting our sleep rhythm. So I trialed that and I didn't get as good of benefits as I would like. So I went back to doing legs at night. Driving has been a goal of mine for the longest time, along with walking independently. And so I started the rehab, and you and I talked about this, but I'll explain it again because you're recording. But I started my vision, because the whole problem for me with driving was the visual neglect, as they call it. So after a brain injury, we don't see with our eyes. It passes through our eyes and goes into the brain, is processed there. So after my damage to my right hemisphere of my brain, that affect my left visual field. And so I had what they call a visual field cut, or a neglect. So I was not, recognizing what was on the left side of the environment. So obviously that becomes a big safety concern. So they revoke your driver's license. And I'm like, I want to drive again. That would be the ultimate independence for me. So I began my vision rehab there at the Long Beach VA, because they had the blind rehab center. And there's a concept that I always bring up to people that some haven't heard of it, called neuroplasticity. And the brain, essentially, it's just that our brains are plastic and they're able to rewire and heal themselves. So it's like, if they give me the tools, and I got into vision rehab and just started training the brain there, gradually, like, accomplished all the goals in that rehab or that therapy setting. So I advanced to driver's training there and got set up with the driver's rehab program there at the Long Beach VA as well. And they took me on and had a great sessions. We started off, as I use writing about it in my book, the crawl, walk, run phase of the training mentality that we had in the military, which it just means you step up from certain things, like you progress the level of progression. So like
what I always tell people, Joe, when I tell your story, is that you were a complete and total hemiplegic for the better part of a year. Hemiplegic meaning completely paralyzed on one side. And I think that gets lost sometimes, because people see how well you're doing now. And for a year, Walter Reed, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but for a year, Walter Reed and some of the best science in the country just was like, there's just not a whole lot. This is your new normal.
Right.
And now look at where you've come. It's
right.
pretty amazing.
You got me connected with Wave Neuro, and when I wrote about that in the book, I was like, and it was explained to me by a DPT at KAATSU. That was the spark to like open up those neural pathways. Or I use the analogy of a vehicle with a dead battery. You jumpstart it, and then it's their job as therapists, as he put it, to take me out on the freeway and drive me.
Yeah.
Because TC's program, their treatment, that like sparked my left leg. And then it also like opened up my visual field. I began reading, and I was like, if I'm going to be a writer, I've got to be well read. And now I have a library with a kitchen with a library, or a library with a kitchen, as Ben Greenfield has been known to say. I've turned my camera around here and show y'all my voice. Like, you think you got enough books?
You filmed them walking with John's help. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that got a crap ton of views on YouTube, didn't it?
You're kind of a big deal.
Well, Joe, one of your KAATSU videos has it has over 2 million views, at least the last time I saw it.
That's the one from San Diego.
Okay.
And it gets out to people, because I had guys asking me about it now, like from my unit. They're like, because they're going through like rehab stuff with SOCOM, and they're like, Joe, can you tell me a little bit about KAATSU? I'm like, I sure can. And they're asking me about KAATSU. I was like, oh, they're involved in that. I was like, yeah, it's great for rehab. Like one of my teammates, he was doing rehab for a hip injury. And I was like, bro, it's amazing. I was like, I can't even speak enough about its benefits. It's like, just take to it, man. I was like, use it.
Yeah.
KAATSU was what do you feel like KAATSU was benefiting you personally the most with your healing?
The reduction in spasticity and then the sleep, like I mentioned. And
Okay.
sleep from a brain perspective, I cannot stress that enough to people. I've written, I have a little note if you want it, like I can email it to you. I call it Joe's Sleep Tips, Tricks, and Hacks, because I was like, everybody I encounter, they struggle with sleep. Just look around how many Starbucks and coffee shops are on every corner. I'm like, we are underslept and sleep deprived in this country. And then that has astronomical negative effects on the body, like our weight gain. I was like, I'm not ambulatory. I do everything from my chair. And I'm like, if I can manage to maintain a lean figure, like there's no excuse for anybody not to be able to. It's like, just sleep is so crucial. But that's what I was trying to get out on that. I'm like,
There's like a day or two that you miss KAATSU at night. What are the effects? What do you see that happens when that happens?
I just know I don't have it like a sleep tracking device anymore. I just notice that I'm not sleeping as well, like deeply. And other folks like David Carlson he asked me about that, because I was like, yeah, it's huge for sleep. But I also do a lot of other things to help that. But it's a sleep enhancing therapeutic device, in my opinion. I'm like, and like I've said, and I'll hit it again. I was like, sleep is priority. That's in a variable that I know I can control, and I make sure I do.
Joe, how often are you getting out of your chair? And how, I know for a long time you were really almost religious about tracking your steps each day. How's that all coming?
Well, now I've got it, because I set the goal this year to walk my driveway, which is actually, I could take, yeah, it's pretty damn far. Like I want to, and they put the artificial turf now, so I have a mini golf course on the Lowrey Manor, as Steven has referred to it. But yes, that's my goal. But I'm waiting till like David or somebody can come help me with that one. That's a big, hefty goal. But I do walk out to my kitchen and back into my man cave that I'm in right now. So I want to say that's probably about 800, maybe 800 meters. And I've done endurance tests with the PTs at Long Beach, and they did an 800-meter walk with me, and that smoked the hell out of me. But I love how I feel after it. I'm just like glowing, because I've met some guy and he's like, you're super motivational. I was like, it's because I just got done walking. I was like, that just motivates the hell out of me. Like I want to run again, and I want to get, now I found bike trails by my new place. So I'm like, I got to get that trike that David was, it was BC or before COVID.
Yeah.
That I was doing trike training there at the VA in Long Beach. I got to get them to get me that thing now and start doing that with KAATSU on, because that trike, that stuff is, bicycles are really good for that motor movement too, and fitness as well. I'm like, but it's all about safety right now. I got to be able to, because we can see with that bump on my face, I'm like, that was just a transfer. I'm like, I cannot walk on my own yet.
Thank you very much, Joe. That was great.